All right, so imagine this. The language you speak every single day isn't considered good enough for, real art, for great stories. That was literally England about 600 years ago. Today, we're going to talk about the guy who basically changed all of that, Geoffrey Chaucer. Let's dive in and figure out how on earth a poet from the Middle Ages got a title as huge as the father of English literature.
I mean, seriously, think about that title, the father of English. That is a massive claim for just one person. So how did he get it? Well, to figure that out, we can't just, read his books. No, we have to go way back. We have to start with the absolutely chaotic world he was born into. We're talking knights, plagues, and just massive, massive social change.
Okay, so first things first, let's talk about this world in turmoil. To really get a handle on a guy like Chaucer, you absolutely have to understand his era, the 14th century. And look, this wasn't just, a long time ago. It was a world that was being completely torn apart and then rebuilt from scratch.
Just look at the timeline of his life. It is wild. He was born in 1340, right into this super rigid feudal system. But then, boom, 1348, the Black Death hits, wiping out nearly half the population. Then in 1381, you have the Peasants' Revolt, which was just explosive. So this chaos, it wasn't just some background noise for him. It created these huge cracks in the old way of doing things. And right through those cracks, something totally new started to grow. A new kind of society, and yeah, a new kind of literature.
So, who was this guy at the center of this incredible storm? Well, this brings us to the man who saw everything. Because here's the thing about Chaucer. He wasn't some isolated monk, scribbling away in a dusty old monastery. Nope. He was right in the middle of all of it.
And when I say he was in the middle of it, I mean it. The guy wore a lot of hats. He was a court official, he was a diplomat, and of course, a poet. You got to think of these jobs as his all-access backstage pass to 14th century life. I mean, one day he's rubbing shoulders with kings and queens, and the next he's dealing with merchants, soldiers, and craftsmen. This incredible panoramic view of society, that became the secret ingredient in his writing.
And man, was he busy. He wrote so much. Everything from these really tragic poems to bizarre dream visions. But it's his final, and actually unfinished work that really changed the game. Of course, I'm talking about the Canterbury Tales. This was his masterpiece, his most ambitious project ever, basically a complete portrait of medieval life. So let's get into it. What exactly are the Canterbury Tales? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like the original 14th century road trip. Seriously, the whole setup is pretty simple. A big, diverse group of strangers all meet up at an inn. They realize they're all heading the same way, on a pilgrimage to Canterbury, so they decide to travel together and tell stories to pass the time.
And right there, that is where the genius lies. Because the group of pilgrims, it includes everyone. You've got a noble, perfect knight, and also a loud, drunken miller. You've got a super shady pardoner selling fake relics, and a surprisingly worldly nun. It's a complete cross-section of society. And you have to understand, this was completely unheard of at the time. Before Chaucer, literature was all about epic heroes, or kings, or saints. He was the one who made it about, well, us, real, messy people.
So yeah, that's what made it so incredibly revolutionary. It was just a true reflection of life. The stories themselves are all over the place. Some are hilarious, some are really rude, others are deeply religious or just plain tragic. With his razor-sharp satire and incredible social insight, Chaucer wasn't writing about abstract ideas like good and evil. No, he was capturing people in all their messy, glorious, and deeply human complexity.
But you know what? Maybe his most radical, most revolutionary act wasn't even what he wrote about, but the language he chose to write it in. And this, right here, is where we really get to the heart of his legacy. See, back in Chaucer's day, there was a pecking order for languages. If you wanted to be taken seriously, if you were writing something important, you wrote in Latin. That was the language of the church, or you wrote in French, the language of the royal court. English, the version we call Middle English, was, well, it was considered the language of the common folk. It was rough. By choosing to write his masterpiece in English, Chaucer was making a hugely powerful statement. He was saying, hey, the language of ordinary people is worthy of great art. He single-handedly gave it prestige.
And get this, he didn't just use English, he basically perfected it for poetry. He was one of the first to really popularize what we call iambic pentameter. It's just a 10-syllable rhythm that kind of sounds like a heartbeat. The dum, da dum, da dum. It mimics the natural flow of English speech.
And if that sounds familiar, it's because it's the exact same rhythm Shakespeare would later make famous. So Chaucer didn't just write in English, he gave the language its poetic heartbeat.
So, okay, let's put all the pieces together. You've got the incredible realism, the sharp social insight, and the fact that he elevated the English language itself. When you see it all laid out, you really start to grasp his incredible lasting impact. He legitimized English as a language for serious literature. Without him, who knows if we'd have a Shakespeare or a Milton? He shifted the focus of literature onto individual human experience, planting these little seeds of humanism that would totally explode during the Renaissance. He truly set the stage for the next 500 years of English literature. Now, of course, it's important to remember Chaucer wasn't totally alone in this. He wasn't working in a vacuum. He was part of this much bigger intellectual awakening that was happening. You had thinkers like John Wycliffe challenging the church by translating the Bible into English for the first time. You had other poets like William Langland writing these really sharp critiques of society. Chaucer was just the most brilliant, artistic voice of this new questioning spirit.
And that is why people started calling him the morning star of the Renaissance. Just think about that for a second. He was that first bright light you see in the sky just before the sun comes up. He was the signal that the dawn of a whole new modern era of art and thinking was about to break. It's a perfect metaphor for him, isn't it?
So let's go back to our original question. Why is he the father of English literature? Well, here's the answer, plain and simple. He took a language that people looked down on and proved it could create incredible art. He shifted literature's focus away from just gods and kings and aimed it right at the complex, messy heart of everyday people. In his hands, the English language didn't just find its voice, it found its vision.
And really, that leaves us with one last thought. Over 600 years ago, Chaucer forged this incredible tool for all of us, a language that can express the entire crazy spectrum of human life. So the real question isn't about him anymore, it's about us. What stories are we going to tell with it?